this episode, we will create search helps for our UI, replace some technical values with text, and implement a general search in the application. In the first example, we create a search for our data element contact type, where all values are contained in the domain's fixed values. Let's take a look at the domain and compare the different values. Next, we need a new core data service to display the data for us in the appropriate format. The VH at the end of the view indicates the value help, a common abbreviation when creating the object. We will leave the reference object empty as we want to use a template right away. Before generating, make sure you are using the view entity template. In this example, we won't access the code snippet page, but will use a new IDE action that currently still in beta. Using generate code snippet, we select the value help from data element action and specify a name for the field and the corresponding data element. After executing the action, we will receive a suggested code, which we will accept. Finally, we clean up the view and activate the object in the system. Now we run the data preview on the view and hold the view's result next to the domain. The fixed values and the corresponding texts are displayed. Now we want to implement the search help in our core data service at the consumption level. In the front of the contact type int field, we execute our IDE action again and select define value help at field in this step. Here we can enter the core data service for the value help, as well as the field name. After confirmation, the template is adopted. If you know the annotation right away, you don't need the code snippet. Now we reload the UI. If we now call the field's value help, the three types are displayed. If we select a type, it will be adopted, and we can filter the data accordingly. Now let's adjust the value help again. We actually want a drop-down menu in the UI for the three values. To do this, we need to add the annotation at the header level. Among the code snippets, we find the activate drop-down action, which inserts an annotation into the view. This defines the result set as very small, which causes the field to be converted into a drop-down menu in the UI. If we now update the UI, we get a defined drop-down menu. Here we can select the entries directly. Let's now define additional value helps in the system. In the first step, we define a new value help for the contact ID. To do this, we use the base view of the data model as the basis. Using the context menu, we can create a new core data service, give it a name and a description. Finally, remember to define the correct template for the view. Once the new view has been created, we delete some annotations we no longer need. Then we define the fields we need in the view. In the first step, we create a new compound field. For this, we combine the first name and the last name. We then define the value help for the type, as well as the consumption view, and remove fields that we don't need in the search help. If we then run the view, we get a preview of the data. Finally, we transfer the search to the consumption view. We now use a standard view in the system to have a search help for the countries. With country VH, we should get a suitable search help. If we now run our application, the value helps are loaded for the fields. If we call the help for the contacts, we see our defined fields in the list. For each field there is a restriction option or a filter in the upper section. If we open the countries, we also receive the defined search help. In the next step, we also need to expose the search help in the service as an entity. To do this, we add the various views to the service definition. If you are unable to open a search help or it is unavailable, it may be that the view has not been released. As a final step, we correct the field in the search help. We made an error here through copy and paste, which is displayed as a warning in the IDE. Then save and activate again. Before we can show the text on the UI, We first need to define the associations to obtain the necessary additional data. Therefore, we add the new views to the root level. We define an association and use the new cardinality. This replaces the old cardinality with the numbers and should also be used as a successor. We define a one-to-one access and give the entity an alias with an underscore. This is part of the best practices. Then we define the connection using the contact type. As a final step, we need to publish the association in the view by inserting it in the lower part. We now repeat this process for the contact and the country. Now we need a value help for the user as well as a way to easily connect the texts. To do this, we define a new view in the share package. We want to share the object later, but for now we only need it for the contacts. We use the user ID, the full name, and the user's email address. Finally, we clean up the view again, run the pretty printer and activate the object. Finally, we include the view for the creator and the last changer. We will use 2 different aliases as this could involve different information. Once we are done, we declare the 2 associations in the field list. As a final step, we add the association at the consumption level and activate this object. This completes the preparatory work. We can now define the texts in the view. For this, we can use the association alias and access the field from the view. We will therefore create fields for the contact type description, assign an alias, and then define the text fields in the view for the country name, created user, and changed user field. Then we link the text to the respective keys. For this we need the annotation from the object model area and define the newly integrated text field there. Using the text arrangement UI annotation, we can define how and where the text is displayed. For the type and country, the text comes first, followed by the value in parentheses. For the users, we only want to see the text. The corresponding IDs are irrelevant. If we now go back to the UI and refresh the application, we will find the corresponding texts. For example, the type is now filled with the appropriate text and the ID. The filter at this level continues to work and now also contains the text. Previously, only the technical values was displayed as the filter value. If we now switch to the application's object page, we only see the name in the user details and no longer the user ID. In the data area, we will now find the corresponding country with the key in parentheses. This means we have now added the text to some of the technical values. In the last step of this episode, we want to enable a general search in the app for some fields. To do this, we first need to enable the search in the consumption view. Therefore, we add the annotation search searchable to the header and set it to true, which activates the search field in the UI. In the next step, we need to define the standard search elements. This means which fields of the view will be used for the search. We define the search based on the ID, first name, last name, street, and city. The fuzziness determines how precisely the text is searched. With 1.0, the value is expected exactly the same and without errors. With 0.8, we don't have to enter all the letters to get a result. In principle, we can enter a value from 0.6 to 1.0. Finally, let's test the search in the application. For example, if we enter a first name and forgot the last few letters, the search will still find the rows. If we enter an ID incorrectly, we won't get any hits. However, if it is complete, then the filter is exact. Finally, if we enter the city and forgot a letter in between, we will get hits here as well. Of course, the search also works combined with the standard elements of the other filters. This brings us to the end of this episode. We've integrated the various search helps into our application, added additional data via associations, and supplemented some of the technical values with text. Finally, the general search has been integrated into the application. Next time we will add more information via virtual fields and further finalize the UI. Until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.